I've said it many times before, but the Rogue Rhino belt squat is one of my favorite pieces that Rogue has ever released. Well, now they have the Rogue Rhino trainer. This is basically a fully integrated version of what I made in years previous, the Coop squat, but also has the functional trainer. There is so much engineering that's involved in this. It is typical Rogue, very overbuilt, incredible quality, but I'm still not sure if I'll recommend it. You'll have to stay till the end of the video to find out. But let's get into the review. Hey guys, it's Coop from Garage and Reviews. Today we're reviewing the Rogue Monster Rhino Trainer, functional trainer. There is, as I said in the intro, a lot going on in here. If you'd like to see a comparison to this versus anything else, say the Rep Eris or some of the other functional trainer racks that Rogue has, let me know in the comments. Also, if you would like to see that, make sure you subscribe because we can have it forthcoming. But this, as you can see, is probably one of the most exciting releases from Rogue in some time. There was a time there, not that long ago, and not too distant past, where Rogue wasn't really releasing a lot of stuff. And then suddenly they barraged us. When they came out with the functional trainer racks, this was one that everybody was like, I want to wait for that. The reason being is the Rogue Rhino is one of the most versatile platforms that there is, but they also included the opportunity for a functional trainer. But if this is your first time seeing something like this, let me walk through kind of what it does. First off, you have a normal squat rack, as you can see. This is a 6-post option. There's also like this big trolley in the back, but the 6 posts is a standard squat rack. This is what you'd find from any Monster 2.0 rack. It's got the 3x3 inch uprights, fully made in the US. Actually, pretty much everything on this is made in the US, except for the aluminum pulleys, which I'm sure Rogue is probably trying to figure out a way to do that. Got the 1-inch holes, the keyholes on the side, which they're now using in some ways. I'll show you in a bit with this keyhole design on the side, and a 90-inch upright. Really the only difference between this variation and what we've typically seen is these front uprights are stainless, and I'll tell you why I went with those here in a moment. But it's designed so you can do what you could do with a normal Rhino, which is belt squat, but also allows you to do other things with the same trolley they have on the back. If you notice from the original Rhino trolley, it used to go up to about here or so, maybe a little bit taller. Now it goes all the way to the top, so you basically have more cable travel for the belt squat, but also for the other movements that it can now do integrated. One of those integrated movements is this bad boy right here. This is a lat pull down. This allows you to use the trolley like a lat pull down. If you've ever heard of the Coop squat or seen that basically design, it allows you to have something like this using, say, a UPS high pulley from surplus strength. It's now fully integrated with all the cables. But wait, there's more. You can also do low rows, which this thing, I know it doesn't look like it because I'm just so strong. This thing is ridiculously heavy. This now uses the front plate on the front. There was a conspiracy years ago. Why are there 2 holes on the front of the Rhino? It was for a low row plate. So this connects in here like this, using their keyhole design, so it just slips in. Really nice, so you can easily remove it, although it is very heavy to move. And then, I think the most significant contribution to this whole design and engineering that's involved is the functional trainer. Sounds like, wow, that's not a really big deal. Other racks have functional trainers, but they don't have a fully integrated belt squat with it that uses a grandfather clock system. That's right, come over here. This is the grandfather clock system. This is kind of how it works. They're using an integrated weight, they call it a calibrated weight, that allows you to basically have tension on the cables on both the Rhino belt squat and the functional trainer at the heights that you'd want. Here's why that matters. You start squats at the top of a rep. So you want tension here when it's on the Rhino horn, but you want the full travel for the front handles, for the lat pull down, for the low row. So this integrated piece actually adjusts so you can basically have the cable start where you'd like. It's pretty cool. I have some thoughts on it. I'll get to those in a moment. So there's the movements, but let me talk about the build quality. This fits very much in the Rogue paradigm and the fact that it's just very well made. If you're looking at something like Rogue or Rep, which I think are the 2 biggest options, and you're like, I just want the best quality, Rogue is a better quality than Rep. I mean, pretty much everybody says that. I think Rep will take that and be like, we're gonna compete and we wanna do better. But there was a time where companies, especially commercial companies, would talk about Rogue as like, Rogue is just a home gym company. They don't have the quality of like us, a hammer strength. No, Rogue, I think it's like the industry leader in this. They do their quality for robotic welding, powder coat, pretty much everything is just world class. It's also very heavy, and you do pay for it in some ways in the fact because it's made in the US and they're doing everything. Let me just say this overall. One thing that you're gonna find with this, and one thing that matters for something that involves cables, is how smooth it is. Most people that are using cables are used to guide rods, which are very smooth. You lube up the guide rods and then use those, or used to the previous Rogue Rhino. Here's what I'll say. This is not as smooth as the previous Rogue Rhino, and not as smooth, in my opinion, as the guide rod options. The reason for that, one, maybe because it needs more time breaking in. The reality is though, one thing that prevents this thing from being as smooth as I think it could be is the internal weight grandfather clock that's in the inside. Because it moves throughout the movements, it's got to adjust. So they're using rollers on the inside. There is just a lot of cable travel and a lot of things moving around that can prevent as smooth as possible cable travel. So they're using aluminum pulleys plus really good bearings, which aid in the smoothness. But I will say, I was personally expecting it to be smoother than it actually is. Now, when I got the original Rogue Rhino, it wasn't nearly as smooth as it is now, you know, basically like 6 to 7 years later. It's gotten a ton of use. Over time, they break in. I think this will do something similar, but it's not going to be, just generally speaking, as smooth as you'd experience from just their guide rod options. But I will say, if you load it up with a lot of weight, it gets smoother. Funny how gravity works like that. But for the belt squat, the way that you really want to start it is up on the top of the trolley. So it's very similar to the Rogue Rhino. You want to have the weight on after you have it on the Rhino horn. Then you can come in for the belt squat. The belt squat platform is extremely similar to what you see on the original Rhino, which is a black textured powder coat, diamond plate. It's very solid. One thing I would say on the belt squat that would be a cool addition is if they made this adjustable up and down in the back. I know there's probably a lot going on, and this is a minor critique. A lot of people like to squat with wedges today. There's actually a belt squat from Arsenal that actually has a tilting top that allows this to come back, so it's already embedded. The thing is, with this, if you're gonna use wedges, well, you're gonna have to space them out perfectly. It would be cool if you could just do the whole top. Minor, but just an addition, I'd say. But then using the regular system, similar to the regular Rhino. So you step in, you'll notice this always retracts. The reason for that is because of the grandfather clock system with the calibrated weight inside. It's enough to basically pull it down. So this isn't just gonna hang out, which I actually like. It's kind of a nice feature. Step in, get in, pull this back, and then you can squat, put it back, take it off, and then it goes down. Very similar to the Rogue Rhino. The lat pull down, you would basically take your big freaking roller, that's what, the big freaking roller, the big multi-use roller, you can strap it in and then roll your bench in. This, I wish extended a little bit further. That way it was a fully vertical pull. Sometimes it feels like it's more at an angle than I'd like. One thing that I would recommend if you're gonna get the functional trainer, both for the incline purpose, but also for the lat pull down, I would get one that was a little bit deeper. This is 24 inches. You can get them with 30 inches or their big 43 inch, which makes the box. And that would allow you to have room to put your incline bench and do some other work, I think, with more space. And then the low row is actually pretty cool and unique. You can snake it basically through this cable pulley so you can do pulleys. So one thing I did notice online is I don't have any problem on snaking this through while there's weight on there. I did notice a few people on our Facebook group that were saying they have this and they were having trouble getting it through this if they had weight on. So I don't know if there was something wrong with their assembly or that was something wrong with their unit. I'm sure Rogue would take care of them, but just so you see, it's pretty easy for me to put this in here and then you're ready to go. You can then adjust the foot plate, which is the same diamond foot plate. Also, just to call it out, they've got this nice handle right here, which prevents your bench from hitting it and basically, you know, scuffing up the powder coat, but also allows you to have a handle where you can move it easily. And then you can get a full stretch on low row. And it also comes with their D handle, which is something to say about this machine. It just has a lot of accessories and a lot of really nice accessories. The cable handles, the D handle, it comes with either their E-coat or stainless steel lat pull down bar, which is also made in the US, and the Rogue multi-belt. Then to the functional trainer. The functional trainer, I have a love-hate relationship with. Here's why. The componentry that's used And the engineering that's done is really well done. So they're using the same trolley system that they use on their FM series of racks, which is a fantastic trolley. So they're using these oversized knurled handles, which feel just amazing with the barbell. They've got these big pop pins with double hooks. So basically you come in, poop, and adjust up and down. It's extremely smooth to move up and down, smoother than rep, but the reason for that is because they're using rollers, which also makes it heavier. So if you want something that's just a one-hand operation, rep's a better option. You can do this with one hand. It's not like it's crazy, especially because of how smooth these uprights are, thanks to the bare coating. It's just stainless steel. But generally, you're gonna want to move them with two hands and then go to the other side. You really don't get upset about moving these with two hands because they just feel so good. Sometimes I come in and Sam's just sitting here doing this. Sam, stop it. Back to work. The trolleys themselves, as you can see, are oversized. The aluminum pulleys are oversized. Again, classic Rogue, everything is just over freaking built and really thought through. Like the UHMW plastic on the outside, which is kind of unnecessary, but also you're kind of happy you've got it because this connects to it. It's just, man, it's just very well done. But here's the problem, and this is in the functionality. You are buying an all-in-one system that you are spending upwards of near $7,000, but it's still a plate-loaded system for a functional trainer, which means you've got to adjust all the weight there on the backside and adjust it whenever you switch between movements. Sometimes you have to adjust the entire system, basically offload the back trolley. Otherwise, you're gonna have some extra cable travel. Like, looks like this, there's no tension other than the calibrated internal grandfather clock system. So if you wanna start with it all the way back, which is really what makes this unique, you gotta come back here, take this weight off, or just, you know, do it how it is. Lift this up. Shows you how awesome it is. Come back here, lift this up, put this down, and then there. The system itself for the Rogue Rhino, for the lat pull down, for the low row is all 1-to-1. The front is 2-to-1, which is very nice because if you're adjusting between weight, you want it to be lighter, but it's still not crazy light. For some movements, let's say side laterals or something, you're gonna want probably lighter weight, and that's why functional trainers can go all the way down to 5 pounds, whereas this one isn't gonna be quite that light, even if you take the weight all the way off. But another thing I'll show you, when I take the weight all the way off, and we have gone through the assembly on this many freaking times to try and figure out why this is, but let's say I wanted to do like a side lateral with no weight on there. If you look at the back horn, when I pull up, it kind of just stops. Sam and his team assembled this. I came through and looked at it, and we've loosened all the bolts. We've tried lubing up the back upright. We tried doing all sorts of stuff, but if you notice it, it's kind of just like pause there at the empty weight. So my hope would be long-term that would fix itself because it's just got a lot more movement through the system. But at this point, it's just like really annoying because right now, the tension I have, all that is the grandfather clock system. But I will say, if the tension was on there, it would still be too heavy for some movements for some people, which is kind of annoying for, you know, an all-in-one system like this. One thing we were thinking is like, well, they use these set screws that basically tension the rollers up against the upright. So we loosened all the rollers. All the set screws are on this front one. So we're like, well, maybe we tightened them too tight when we put it together. We've loosened them basically, I mean, they're all the way out. They're not really even resting on there. And it's still the same problem. So it just stops, which you need that thing free floating. So if you got a recommendation, let me know. Hopefully Rogue reached out to us and maybe there's just a simple explanation. And if there is, we'll put it in the comments so you guys can see it and know that maybe it's a user error. It's just we cannot freaking figure this out. So if you have one of these and you have this issue or don't, let me know in the comments. Okay, so would I recommend this? Here's what I'll say. The Rogue Monster Rhino trainer, and I'm talking about the new version, not including the functional trainer, is fantastic. You're not gonna have the grandfather clock system, which is gonna add some complexity in the system and introduce some friction. It's gonna be able to do what you love with the Rogue Rhino, belt squat, lat pull down, low row as well, which is included. and it's gonna be really smooth. You're gonna have more cable travel. They've kind of updated the whole system. They're now using aluminum pulleys and aluminum basically options everywhere the cable touches, even right here on the side rails, which is really freaking sweet. And the functional trainer component is really well engineered. It's a really cool idea they came up with, even showing on the outside with like the looking glass, which kind of reminds me of Dyson with their vacuums. They were the first company that basically made it so their vacuums were clear so you could see it was actually picking up dust. And a lot of people were like, nobody wants to see that. Well, it turns out everybody wants to see that. Well, Rogue kind of, I don't think they took a cue from this necessarily, but it is kind of a cool idea where now you can see the engineering that's done and it's not just hidden inside, you can kind of look at it. I like that whole idea. So I don't want to like downplay the engineering because it probably took a lot of thought, but I will say from a usability standpoint, personally, I would not get the all-in-one with the functional trainer. I would wait until hopefully Rogue comes out with this version using twin stacks. Then you'd have twin stacks for the functional trainer. Or I would just buy the Rogue Rhino trainer and I would get it with the 30-inch option. That way you have some room to put your bench in for incline. I would just get the 4-post version and then I'd get a separate functional trainer because the price wouldn't be probably that much more than just this all-in-one unit. Or what I would do if you're like ultra bougie is I would just get that plus 2 Voltras. And then you have digital resistance for your functional trainer and all the other components. And it would be more expensive than this standalone, but if you're already spending this much, that may not be a big deal to you. So that being said, do I like the Rogue Monster Trainer? Do I recommend it? Absolutely, but not the functional trainer version. So the functional trainer version personally is not, I'm not a huge fan of, but they did a really good job with the actual trainer, not the functional trainer. Now I mentioned like I went with the stainless steel front uprights. I love this option. This is something, first company I really saw do it was Eleiko on their Prestera series where everything was powder coated but the front uprights. The reason that's nice is because these that roll on here are very smooth, but also that means jammer arms on here would be very smooth. Also, I like the black and silver contrast. It just looks cool, but also premium. It's just nice, and it would also match any other equipment you'd have in your garage versus going with a color that may like mix up, and pretty much everything that you can buy comes standard as black, and it's typically cheaper than going with the color options, which is nice. But the real big reason is because I was gonna put this in my garage, and if I was gonna put it in my garage, I was gonna put the bulletproof VTS on here, and because it used the upright for the Smith functionality, it'd be very smooth. One thing I will say on the Shrouds, these are an additional cost. If you've got kids, you may want this because it hides the pulleys so your kids' fingers don't get stuck in there. My kids are constantly running around the gym and I have pulleys everywhere and they haven't gotten hurt yet. So it's kind of nice to have this. It does look cool and I like that it doesn't take up the whole area, but I am curious like if there's gonna be a way to change this and remove the Shrouds and then put a double stack in here for the twin stack version. That would be pretty cool. But I do like that they didn't just make this one blank slate. They put in these keyholes, which they have hooks and things, so you can put them on there to store things, which is a pretty cool idea. You could also store the low row foot plate because it's the same spacing as an upright, so, and it uses keyholes, so you put it in there and go down. Also, if you have an existing Rogue Rhino, one thing you can do, hopefully, is maybe buy this separately from Rogue. I don't see it offered on their site yet, but maybe, I bet if you emailed them, they could send it to you. I would hope that this piece, it looks like it's just bolted to the front holes, and the Rogue Rhino, as far as I remember, the one I have in my garage, has these same holes in the same distances, at least they look like it. So this would be an add-on piece you could bolt on there and then use your Rogue Rhino plate basically to attach to there. The one thing that you may not be able to do is there may not be enough cable travel because of where the trolley sits. So that'd be something that Rogue can answer. One other thing I'd note on assembly, this is very involved. There's a lot of stuff going on. It would be nice if Rogue comes out with a video for installing this. I think it would be helpful, and they've done it for products in the past. That would be really nice. They just came out with this, so maybe they don't have it done yet. But the instructions were actually pretty good, although there's just a lot involved. You just gotta make sure you go through it slowly because there's just a lot of cables there. Okay, this is the Rogue Rhino Monster Trainer, Functional Trainer review. Let me know what you think of the Rhino Trainer in the comments, if it's something you'd upgrade to, or if you would just go with maybe one of the variations that I mentioned, which would be like the Rhino Trainer with a separate functional trainer or something. All right, let me know in the comments. This has been Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. I'll see you next time. Peace.